Watch KSTV weeknights at 7:30 and 11 Eastern, and anytime with Insight on Demand on Channel 103.
And tonight, joined again by our friend Leslie Neely, and rounding out the KSTV Casting Call Finals, Stan Norfleet. Stan, how are you?
Hello, hello. I'm doing well. How's everybody?
Good, happy to have you. And hello to you too, Leslie. I do that every time we introduce the finalists. I forget all about you. How are you?
I'm good.
The lovely Leslie Neely sitting right here. Come on, TJ.
We're very happy to have you both here. Let's get to the starting lineup. Now, the preseason coaches' all-SEC teams were announced this morning, and 2 senior Wildcats made the list. Offensive guard Larry Warford makes it 2 years in a row on the first team, and wide receiver LaRod King will represent UK on the second team. Stan, LaRod King, everybody knows him. You know, it's tough to be a playmaker without a consistent quarterback, but he's found a way to make plays. But Larry Warford, a guy that is very respected by coaches across the conference, always seems to find his way on these preseason lists, and you don't hear about him much after that because he's a lineman. What do you think about these guys making this list?
Well, I want to start with Warford first because as I've looked and evaluated this UK football program historically, offensive line has been an issue. We as UK and Big Blue Nation has not had an offensive lineman drafted since 1993. So it looks like Warford is on the cusp of being that first guy to turn this thing around. Now, being a former defensive guy myself and being in the trenches is so paramount that guys like Warford as well as Matt Smith, even though he didn't make this list, that they set the tone. LaRod King, he's a senior at this point. He's been through the fire, to your point. He's been acclimated with both quarterbacks. He understands what he's doing. But as a converted quarterback, I really look for him to take that next step as a wide receiver and hopefully lead us in receptions this year.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think there's a lot of guys, when you look at Kentucky's receivers the past few years, they're converted high school quarterbacks, running backs, athletes, wherever they can get speed to get on the field. LaRod King's senior season, Leslie, he's been a playmaker. He's a big guy. He can run a little bit. Do you expect him to have an all-SEC postseason award season?
I really hope so. I think last year he had all these opportunities and just couldn't capitalize on them. He dropped a lot of balls. They were hitting him right in the chest. I think he can do that. And I think I want to give a shout out to Larry Warford, Madison Central alumni. So I think he's going to do big things. He did great things in high school. He's carried those in college, and I think he can go further with that as well.
Now, just under 2 months until the football season starts, of course, but Joker Phillips said there's going to be some competition for the quarterback spot. Max Smith is going to take the first team snaps at football camp. But Morgan Newton has some experience. He's going to be contending. He said he's ready to go. There's also, of course, Patrick Towles. But when you look at this team, Max Smith is going to take the first team snaps. When the camp is over, do you think, Stan, that Max Smith will be the starting quarterback of this team?
And the question is, we'll never know. That's the answer. I mean, what I mean by that is, I've always said from day one, I think we were a little premature in getting Morgan out of the seat. Granted, he started 17 games at this point in his career, but Morgan Newton is 8-9. His winning percentage is much more substantial than as Maxwell Smith. So I think if Morgan is healthy, yes, you can stick with Morgan. If Morgan is not and the shoulder's still banged up, you have to go with Max. And under no circumstances do you play Patrick Towles. Freshmen in the SEC don't fare well under center.
Well, I agree with you. I believe it was Jared Lorenzen who worked with Patrick Towles in high school, said he'd like to see him redshirt the year. Like you said, it's difficult for a freshman to find success. Kentucky's done that now twice with Morgan Newton and Maxwell Smith taking that gamble. They've both done pretty well as a freshman. When you look at the competition, Leslie, Max Smith starts camp taking the snaps. So I ask you the same question. At the end of camp, you think he's going to be taking those first team snaps?
I think he's taking the first team snaps. There's something about Morgan Newton I just don't trust. I've just never liked watching him. I don't think he takes a lot of chances. Of course, that may be, due to the plays that he's given. But I just like Max Smith better, and I'm thinking maybe a young guy, maybe he'll take more chances, make more plays. You're not going to win a lot of games, but make him more exciting for us to watch.
What do you make stand of? I'm a big believer in the leader of your team should be your quarterback, if not the leader, but what top 2 or 3 guys. Kentucky had that with Andre Woodson. Randall Cobb, when he played a little bit of quarterback, did that as well. Hartline finally grew into that a little bit. How important is it for a team to find whoever is going to be a quarterback going into the season to give them leadership when they're in transition?
Well, that's the beautiful thing about this game. The beautiful thing about sports is that it's not the same team as last year. You have to find new leaders, and that's what you do in the spring. That's what you do in winter workouts, and that's what you do in fall camp. When we evaluate quarterbacks, a former scout myself, we always look, number one thing you got to be as a quarterback is the leader of men. Do the guys believe? I do attest that the guys seem to respond differently with Maxwell under center, but the production from Morgan Newton, especially when the pocket collapsed, and what he was able to do with his legs, I think guys bought into that, his athleticism and his uncanny ability to make plays both with the arm and with the legs. But I don't think you have to be a quarterback to be a leader. I think you'll start to see guys like Avery Williamson, Bud Dupree will step up. You'll see Collins Uku as well as
Chandler Bird?
Thank you.
Yeah.
You'll see him step up as well. So you can have leaders in different forms and different facets all over the team, but the quarterback doesn't have to be the number one guy.
Well, it'll be interesting for sure. Now, on the other side of things, in basketball, the NBA Summer League is getting underway. The Orlando League has been going. Las Vegas is going to start. Brandon Knight got off, guys, to a great start, 19 points, 14 assists. There are going to be a handful of UK guys playing in this, with Anthony Davis and Darius Miller, the New Orleans team, stand probably the biggest draw for Kentucky fans. Do you put any stock in these Summer League games as a development point for next season?
I think so, especially when you talk about one-and-done guys. You know, this is the era of where they need that additional practice because they're not as fundamentally sound as freshmen as they obviously would be as seniors. But then you also throw free agency into that mix, and guys have got to learn how to play with their future teammates and build that chemistry and the coaching style from the assistant coaches and head coaches. So I think it's paramount for guys like Anthony Davis, Terrence Jones, so on and so forth. I think it's critical.
And it's a chance, Leslie, for guys to develop parts of their game that are a little weak, or at least show their teams what they can do. One of those guys is probably Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, who's a tremendous player, does a lot of things very well. But the big question is, can he score the ball? Can he be an offensive threat? He's going to get a chance to do that going into the Bobcats playing on their Summer League team. What would you like to see, ideally, from these games from Michael Kidd-Gilchrist?
Well, I think he needs to showcase his talents. I mean, he's quick up and down the floor. He can transition really quick, and I think that what he needs to do, he's so good at defense, transition to the offense and just be able to go ahead and score under the basket. I think he can do that, but I think he's just got to show that energy and drive that we all know he has, but NBA teams don't necessarily.
Do you have, Stan, we talked about this the other day when you weren't here, a team now, all these Kentucky guys all over the league. Do you have, I'm sure you have a favorite NBA team, but do you have a favorite Kentucky NBA player you're going to follow in the NBA?
Well, being a Charlotte native, I'm going to have to support MKG.
Yeah.
I love the way he plays. I think Jordan sitting in the ownership box maybe sees a little Scottie Pippen in there. Yeah. So he hopes that he blossoms into that type of player. Energy, defensively, can chip in and score, but that's not his primary role. So I'm cheering for MKG in Charlotte. Finally,
some turning the corner, I think, at Charlotte. Some positivity, some good building blocks. Leaders, like we talked about with football, Kemba Walker, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. So we'll see. Now, 2013 recruit Chris Walker has made it well known that he wants to be a Wildcat and play for John Calipari. However, the 6th-ranked power forward only has offers from UConn, Ohio State, Kansas, Baylor, Florida, but not Kentucky. But Walker told Rivals today, quote, "If they don't offer me this month or pretty soon, I'm probably going to cut them." Stan, he's a weird case because he is great. I mean, you watch these highlight videos, he's very athletic, very skilled. You haven't heard a lot of potential issues with him in terms of off the court or academic. But for some reason, man, he has been campaigning in the press for a year now to get an offer, but Kentucky's not looking at him. Do you think that the class is just so loaded that he's getting lost in the mix? Or do you think John Calipari, there's something there that he knows that he's not letting out?
Well, you have to trust Cal in the sense of talent evaluation. If Cal wanted him, he would have put the offer out there. That's not where he is. So I would say there are probably a couple other power forwards that are ahead of him, and you can't beg for the scholarship. They either like you or they don't. I mean, at this point, it's getting embarrassing. Yeah. I'm really concerned about the way this dude is lobbying for a scholarship. Everybody can't play here. It's not for everybody. There's some other good places to go, but the way he's campaigning is not the way to go about it.
Begging is not a good look for anybody, that a grown man, somebody that talented. But I mean, he is talented, Leslie. When you look at that class, we had Julius Randle on the show last night. Very physical power forward. He's a little different, Chris Walker. He's a little more athletic. Are you surprised that he hasn't gotten this offer? I'm
not surprised because Julius Randle. I think Coach Cal is going after him so hard. I mean, Chris Walker is still, the 6th ranked, 7th ranked, depending on, what site you use. But I think that we have to trust Calipari. He hasn't really done anything bad in recruiting thus far, so maybe he's going hard after Julius Randle. And Chris Walker, stop making ultimatums. This isn't a marriage proposal.
If he doesn't offer him in a month, do we really think it's over? No. I mean, this is one of those relationships with, hey, we broke up, I unfriended you on Facebook, but then you asked me to add you back on Facebook. I mean, this is not going anywhere. This is going to be see what happens and keep going.